Hey guys, tonight we step back into a world without alarms, deadlines, or glowing rectangles that buzz in your pocket. You re-waking up on the big island of Hawaii. I somewhere around the year 1820. The air smells like salt and ripe guava. A gentle breeze slides down Mauna Kea's flank and tussles your hair like a sleepy older sibling. You hear a soft rustling from a nearby hollow tree, a few birds cackling in the distance. The sun is inching over the volcanic horizon, golden and unbothered. And you're stretching awake in a world where no one owns a clock, because clocks haven't arrived yet. There's no glowing digital readout to squint at. No beeping, no ticking. Just your senses. That and a deeply internal sense of when it's time. And that's your first big challenge. You're going to spend this entire this whole dreamy journey navigating life as a 19th century Hawaiian. But you'll be doing it without minutes, without hours, without even weekdays, which, if you're honest, is already sounding better than whatever tomorrow's work calendar holds. But here's the kicker. You're probably not going to survive this. That's not a threat, as a gentle reminder that humans once lived in perfect sync with the land, the sky, and the tides. And getting yanked out of that into a buzzing, blinking world. Brutal. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're rewatching from and what time it is right now. I always love seeing our little sleepy globe light up. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You roll over on a thick sleeping mat woven from dried pandanus leaves. The fibers softened by use and generations of careful tending. The first light of day isn't blinding, it's warm, syrupy, like honey sliding slowly over black stone. There's no word for a M here. What you feel instead is kawana iotha, time of faint light before sunrise. It's not a moment you measure, it's one you melt into. People begin to stir. Not because of a clock, but because birds are losing their minds outside, and the wind shifts ever so slightly inland. It's time. No, not 9 a.m. Just time. You hear a faint crackle, someone starting a fire. You smell tea leaves steaming over coals, wrapping some fish that was caught during the last phase of the moon. You rub your eyes, still no numbers, still no schedule. Just rhythms, like quiet tides in your chest. Out here, time isn't abstract. It's physical. It's taste, temperature, shadow length. You know breakfast is near because your neighbor has just come back from gathering seaweed, and the dogs have started following her tails, wagging ears alert. Dogs always know when it's about to get tasty, or loud. And then someone chants softly a meal about the volcano's breath, about the wind's direction. You can't tell if it's a prayer or a weather report, or maybe both. But that's part of the trick. Out here, time isn't broken into rectangles. It's layered, like petals, like wave upon wave. Now someone asks you if you're going fishing today, but they don't say when. They say after the sun kisses the top of the mango tree, which, if you're honest, is more beautiful than let's meet at 10. Historians still argue whether pre-contact Hawaiians had a strict concept of measured time at all, or whether their world ran completely on ritual and rhythm. But here, lying in the soft edge of morning, you begin to understand it wasn't a lack of structure. It was a different kind of precision. You head down a narrow path of smooth lava stones. Your bare feet feel the difference between cool shadows and the warm stretch of sun across the dirt. You don't look at a watch. You are the watch. Overhead, the clouds drag lazy shadows across the hills. You stop under a kukui tree. Its silver leaves shimmer with dew, like someone scattered moonlight across its branches. That's when your cousin calls out. Not a hey, it's time. Just a smile and a ready when you are. Time, here, waits for you. It doesn't boss you around. That said, it's not chaos. There is order. but it breathes. The old folks say, you rise with the sun. You rest with the dark. The rest is up to the land. And the land has its own calendar, a million tiny signals that whisper what comes next. You pause to eat some cooked taro soft, rich, earthy. Your mouth knows it's early, even if no clock says so. Then you help tend the plants. You pull weeds gently, placing them in a pile that will later mulch the soil. No one's timing you. But you move with care because your movements matter not to a deadline, but to the earth. A neighboring child sings something about the rain. You catch a word, Ue Coco, the red rain, colored by volcanic dust. You smile. Even weather has its own names, its own time cycles. You remember yesterday's late drizzle and now understand that today will be drier, hotter, slower. Suddenly, there's a burst of laughter. Someone else telling a story from the last time Peel the volcano got angry and threw rocks at a canoe. You laugh too, because you can't not. You've heard the tale before. But the way the elder is performing it, now full of cheeky details about some poor fisherman's burned backside, hits different. And that's another thing. In a world without minutes, stories are your calendar. You don't say, last Tuesday. You say, remember when Kimmo fell into the pig pen during the storm? That was 3 papayas ago, maybe 4. You wander toward the shoreline, where the breeze cools your face and plays in your hair. A line of smooth stones leads to an old Heiawa sacred temple site. The stones are placed with intention, aligned to catch the sun at just the right angle on solstice days. Some say the temple's shadow tells time. Others say that's just a poetic guess. Still, as you stand there watching sunlight snake between basalt blocks, you start to believe it. You don't need a second hand ticking forward. You just need to watch how the world slowly turns. By now, the sun is high. Your skin warms. You know it's time for work, but no one has called a meeting. Instead, tasks begin. Someone climbs a coconut tree. Someone else starts pounding bark into kappa cloth, and you're off to help fish. Not because it's 11:30 a.m., but because the tide is just right, the clouds haven't thickened yet, and the eels are restless. That's time enough. You squint at the ocean. Somewhere, way out there, ships are beginning to cross toward these islands. They carry ticking devices and calendars with numbered squares. But for now, here, none of that exists. It's just you, your people, and the planet breathing together. You smile. You'll keep breathing this way a little longer. The sun lifts itself a little higher now, stretching long and bold across the slopes of Walblai. The shadows that earlier puddled beneath trees and huts have thinned, slipping quietly away like shy children excusing themselves from adult conversation. You feel it not a ticking clock, but a deep pulse in the day itself. It's time to shift. Not from hour to hour, but from phase to phase. Out here, in the Hawaiian Islands of the 1800s, the day isn't chopped into ticking slices. There's no 8 to 5, no lunch break announced by shrill buzzers. The day is lived in thirds: kakahaka, awakia, and asaya. These are not rigid chunks of time. They read more like moods the sky wears as the light changes. You've already passed through the misty embrace of kakahaka. That's when everything felt quiet, sacred, like the world hadn't fully decided whether to wake up. But now you're standing under a wekia. Midday, not a number on a dial, but a feeling in your bones. The wind has shifted. It's less playful now, more direct, almost businesslike, if the wind ever had a briefcase. You see people moving with intention, sharpening tools, weaving mats, repairing fishnets. The easy laughter of early morning gives way to a steady rhythm. You take up a bundle of lahala leaves and begin stripping fibers for weaving. Not because anyone shouted, "Get back to work," but because the sun told you so. And you've learned to listen. Even children, sticky with mango juice and barefoot curiosity, seem to understand this transition. They quiet down, at least a little, and follow older cousins into the taro patch or toward the sea to gather limpets. Nobody checks a clock. They don't need to. You watch a woman weaving, her fingers moving fast and sure. Her pace isn't hurried, but it's efficient. She's been weaving since the light shifted. She'll stop when the wind cools again, or when the scent of evening fires whispers that it's time to wrap things up. You wonder how she keeps such perfect track of time with no numbers. She glances up and grins. "Your shadow's your calendar," she says, "and your skin knows more than your brain." Historians still debate how structured these thirds of the day really were, whether they were evenly split by light or simply shaped by practice. But what's clear is this: Hawaiian time was relational. You didn't fit your life into time. You let time wrap itself around your life. You step back from your work, stretching until your shoulders pop like quiet drums. You glance down. Your own shadow is stubby, now tucked beneath you like a lazy cat. That's how you know it's peak Awakea. The sun stands right above, bold as a chief holding court. And with that comes a shift in sound. Birdsong softens. The sea hushes. Even the insects buzz at a lower volume. Everything flattens slightly in the heat. You squint out across the fields where men and women are pounding taro into poi. Thick and sticky, like lavender paste. Each thump is deliberate. The sound echoes against the hills. This is time measured in beats, not minutes. Each strike of the papakuai etha wooden board used to pound becomes a kind of clock. You watch the rhythm. Too slow, one quick. Too slow, one quick. It's music and math and meaning, all without numbers. You've even heard the elders say that people used to set their own inner clocks by the daily patterns around them. Wake with the birds, work with the sun, rest with the stars. Simple, but precise. In a way your digital watch can't compete with. Someone nearby starts a chanta meal hana, a work song that blends praise, memory, and instruction. The chant isn't just beautiful, it tells time. Some of these chants are centuries old, passed down to help workers maintain rhythm and remember technique. You find yourself swaying slightly, matching the beat with your own breath. You're not checking the hour. You are the hour. Then, a cloud slides across the sun, cooling your neck. A whisper from above. You look up. In some cultures, that's just weather. Here, it's a cue. The elders used to say that when the shadows return, it's time to start preparing for a hahi, the gentle descent toward evening. You feel a shift again. Someone gathers the children to wash off sticky fruit hands. Another lays out fish to dry in the lowering light. There's no rush, no clanging bell, just subtle quasi-smell of earth warming. The birds returning, the way even the flies get slower. That's how the day is broken here. Not by gears or electricity, but by color, sound, movement. The air becomes heavy in a familiar way, like a blanket pulling over your shoulders. You pass an old man sitting beneath a cow tree, carving a bowl from Milo wood. He doesn't look up when you greet him. It just says, "Almost time to feed the dogs." You look around. The dogs already know. Their tails wag in slow circles. They've tuned in too. Is this instinct practice, or just a more ancient kind of knowing? Historians argue about whether the division into thirds was a product of necessity or philosophy. Some say it's just how people adapted to sunlight in a tropical environment. Others think it reflects a deeper worldview, one that doesn't see time as a ladder, but as a tide that comes and goes. You walk back toward the cluster of homes where smoke curls lazily from small cooking fires. The smell of cooked taro, roasted pig, and seaweed fills the air. You pass a grandmother who presses something wrapped in tea leaf into your hands. You unwrap it slowly, sweet potato and coconut, still warm. That's how you end a Wakea. Not with a phone buzz or a calendar ping, but with food, laughter, and the soft hum of shared rhythm. Someone tells a joke. It's a familiar one about a fisherman who forgot his net but caught a pig instead. You laugh, not because it's fresh, but because it fits. A joke told at the right moment becomes another kind of time marker. Humor here is like seasoning you add it to the day to remember where you've been. And just like that, the sun tips its golden bowl toward the west. Shadows stretch again. The world lets out a breath. You're not worried about what time it is. You already know. You tilt your head back and squint at the sky. The sun is still there, but now it's leaning sideways, like someone who's had a long day and is looking for a place to sit. The light gets longer, warmer, deeper, and that's your kuahahi has begun. Not because anyone announced it, but because you feel it settle across your skin like a silk blanket. The day exhales. The third phase of the Hawaiian day is here, and it's the gentlest. Aihe isn't about winding down in a flurry of panic, trying to finish a to-do list. It's about transition. In this world, the evening isn't stolen by distractions or fluorescent lights. It's welcomed, like an old friend bringing cool breezes and stories. You begin to move with more softness. Everyone does. Work tools are put away not in haste, but with ceremony. The koi's tone adds us wrapped in kappa cloth and placed in a corner. The unused taro stalks are tucked back into the soil as compost. Even the dogs lie flatter, sighing as if they too have been on their feet all day. A pot is set over coals. You recognize the scent of ualuzi potato and you know dinner is coming. Not because your phone vibrates, but because your stomach joins the choir of crickets starting to sing nearby. It's a quiet chorus. A haihi is a time for careful talk, for listening, for watching how the land closes its eyes. You sit near a fire pit with a small group. No one calls it 6 p.m. They just know. Someone stirs the stew and hums a tune under their breath. The sky overhead has slipped into its indigo pajamas. A sliver of moon peeks out. You can't remember the last time you saw the moon this clearly in your own time. Here, it's a neighbor. One of the older women begins to chant. It's not loud, barely rises above the crackling of the fire, but you listen closely. It's a meal inoa, a name chant. This one honors an ancestor who once crossed the Kaiwi Channel in a single canoe, guided only by stars and stubbornness. The chant is slow and rich. It doesn't tell time, it becomes time. Historians sometimes overlook this part the evening. So much focus gets placed on harvests and tools and land divisions. But evenings like this, they were central. This was when knowledge was passed down, not just facts, but ways of being. Someone asked a question about the stars. Another person points upward. That one, they say. That's Macaulay. When he rises just after sunset, it's the start of Makahiki, a festival, a new year. A shift not just in the calendar, but in the energy of everything. And just like that, time becomes constellations. This part of the day is where astronomy lives. It's not the kind where you type coordinates into a telescope. The kind where your great-grandmother points to a twinkling light and tells you when to plant breadfruit. Hawaiian star navigation is layered, poetic, technically more precise than most modern folks realize. You try to follow her finger as she draws imaginary lines in the sky. She names each star in a cadence that sounds like music. For a moment, the sky isn't random anymore. It's a map, a planner, storybook, but it also changes depending on who's looking. Scholars still debate how standardized these star interpretations were. Did each island have its own sky language? Were the stars used differently for farming than for voyaging? There's no one answer, but that uncertainty only adds to the magic. Tonight, you're just watching, absorbing, letting your breath fall in sync with the wind. The fire pops. A small piece of kindling crumbles. You smell it sharp and woody and you feel something shift again. A softness, maybe even a sadness. The day is leaving, so people begin to remember. This is the part of Aihe where stories come out. Not just chants or lessons, but real stories, messy ones, funny ones. Sometimes spooky ones that make the kids grab the nearest adult's arm and pretend they not scared. Someone tells a tale about a menehune mischievous little person who builds entire fish ponds overnight, then disappears before sunrise. You've heard variations before, but this one ends with the menehune accidentally walling himself inside the pond and having to live there forever, becoming the world's most confused tilapia. You chuckle. Not just at the joke, but at the way the teller delivers it, deadpan, eyes wide, drawing the silence out between punchlines like a master weaver pulling thread through barcloth. Time stretches when stories are told like this. You don't check a clock, you lean in. You don't know whether it's been 10 minutes or an hour, and you don't care. This is sacred space. The stars are fully out now. The sky is velvet. Someone's dozing near the edge of the circle, head resting on a folded kapa cloth. No one wakes them. There's no need. Time here allows for drifting. The children are ushered to their mats, wrapped in hand-woven blankets. You watch as one boy tugs his mat closer to the fire's edge, not because he's cold, but because he wants to fall asleep with the voices still in his ears. And suddenly, you realize Hayahi isn't just the third part of the day, it's the gentle doorway into timelessness, into the dark, soft realm of sleep where no clocks can follow. You stretch your legs, now stiff from sitting. The fire crackles low. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls poi. It's said that they're watchers, protectors, messengers. You take one last look at the stars. They're not just pretty, they're reliable. They anchor the night. You feel something profound settle into your chest. A kind of peace, like the world has stopped rushing, like the minutes have gone on vacation. Out here, time isn't lost. It's just quiet, like the hush of the tide retreating from the shore, like the sound of your own breath, slowing, sinking with the rhythm of the fire, the night, and the old stories that never needed a clock to begin with. You wake slowly, not because of an alarm, but because of birdsong. It arrives like an orchestra tuning its instruments, first one, then two, then a soft chorus that nudges the darkness away. A breeze slips through the woven mat wall of the hail, cool, fragrant. It carries the scent of damp earth, crushed leaves, and somewhere faintly roasted breadfruit. You stretch, your muscles creak, your brain stirs with fog. But there's no urgency here. No blaring ringtone, no glowing screen shoving you into the day. Instead, time returns gently, like tide creeping back up the sand. This is kakahaka again. Morning, but it's not yesterday's kakahaka, and it won't be tomorrow's. Each day begins with its own flavor, and today, the air feels especially thick with dew and mystery. You sit up slowly, listening for cues. A distant rooster, a child giggling, someone already pounding taro. But no, just wind and birds. That tells you something. It's early in the first third of the day, early enough that even the Pig's Haven tea started grunting. You step outside. The sky is gray-blue, like shark skin. You take a deep breath. The cold presses into your lungs, sharp but welcome. And then you notice it. No shadows yet. That means the sun hasn't broken the horizon. This is the hinge moment. The hinge between night and day. And in old Hawaii, this was one of the most important timekeepers of all. Not sunrise, pre-sunrise. Ancient Hawaiians tracked time not by what the sun was doing, but by what it was about to do. That subtle difference is everything. It made them observant, patient, and astonishingly good at guessing what came next. You walk to the edge of a ridge where a few elders sit quietly, wrapped in kapa cloths. Their heads are turned east. You follow their gaze. There, right above the ocean's black line, is the faintest golden thread. The kind of light you'd miss if you blinked too long. That's Hunaka, one whispers. The sun's still hidden. They speak softly, as though noise might scare the dawn away. You learn that this moment, the fraction before sunrise, was deeply spiritual, not just pretty. In fact, the early part of Kakahaka was often reserved for kapu, acts, prayers, offerings, conversations with ancestors that required quiet skies and steady hearts. You glance at your own hands. You're holding nothing, but still feel like you should bow. This time of day demands reverence, not because someone said so, but because nature said so. And then, suddenly, there it is, the first sliver of sunlight spilling across the ocean's lip. The world turns gold at the edges. You hear a soft rustling leaves responding, birds shifting. Somewhere, a conch shell blows. That's the signal. Not an abstract 6:15 a.m., but the actual sight of the sun breaching the horizon. That's what wakes the island. Down below, a woman begins to chant, not loudly. It's a meal ollie, a non-dancing chant, rhythmic and strong. She's welcoming the sun, asking for clarity, perhaps requesting blessings for fishing or planting. You don't know the words exactly, but you understand the feeling. This is a sun greeting. And once upon a time, it wasn't rare, it was daily. Historians still debate how many commoners versus priests engaged in these sunrise rituals. Some believe it was strictly reserved for the kahuna, the religious experts. Others argue that even fishermen or farmers would stop to acknowledge the sun's return. But there's agreement on one thing: Hawaiians didn't take daylight for granted. You step away, letting the sun warm your back. The cool of night is already retreating underfoot. Dew turns to steam. The first flies buzz lazily around fallen guava. You walk past a garden where taro leaves glitter with moisture. Comes another layer of timekeeping plant time. You reach down and press a finger into the dirt. It's damp, warm, the right consistency. The kaklua planting method relies on moisture memory, knowing how many days since rain fell and how many more before the sun bakes it dry. Farmers don't use clocks, they use soil. Next to you, a man checks a breadfruit tree. He knocks lightly on its trunk. Still tight, he mutters. Maybe 2 more moa. You ask what that means? Turns out, a mo is a kind of time unit measured, not in minutes, but in chicken crow intervals. Yes, you heard that right. 2 chicken crows from now, the fruit should be ripe. And you know what? It works. There is even a saying, Kamanawa o Kamoa, the time of the chicken. It wasn't just a joke. Chickens crow at consistent intervals throughout the early part of the day, and those intervals became informal timers for cooking, farming, even storytelling. It's one of those details that modern folks often miss. We're so conditioned to ignore animals as background noise. But here, they are the background clock. You make your way toward the shoreline. The tide's low, revealing small pools filled with darting shrimp. A group of kids are already there, scooping up tiny fish with woven nets. They're loud now, full of morning energy. Their laughter skips across the water. Their caretakers, a few aunties in sun-bleached pareo, don't tell them to hurry. They just glance at the sun's angle, nod to each other, and trust that everything will flow in rhythm, because it always does. This is the part of the day for learning. Not in a classroom. Out here. Through mimicry, repetition, and proximity. You see one boy copy his auntie's footstep as she balances along a lava ridge. He stumbles. She doesn't scold, she just shows him again. Historians are still trying to reconstruct how structured childhood learning was in traditional Hawaiian life. Some argue it was mostly informal. Others say there were systems mentorships, roles assigned from early age, apprenticeship pathways for everything from canoe making to chanting. But everyone agrees on one thing. Time for learning was built into the rhythm of the day. It wasn't squeezed in. It was the morning's job. The sun climbs higher. Shadows start to lean. The smell of salt mixes with drying seaweed. You hear the rhythmic slap-slap of kapa being pounded in the distance. Someone nearby is smoking fish. And just like that, you're nearing the end of Kakahaka. But before the morning gives way completely, there's one more ritual. A man stands at the edge of a haui, a temple site overlooking the sea. He lifts a bundle of tea leaves, dips them in ocean water, and shakes them toward the sky. It's a purification ritual, short and solemn. He murmurs a few words soft, like he's talking directly into the ear of the wind. You don't need to understand the language. The meaning is clear. The day has begun, and it's not just about the work ahead, it's about remembering your place. That time is not a staircase, climbing endlessly towards something bigger. It's a circle, a cycle, a breathing pattern shared by people, land, sea, and sky. You stand still for a moment. Let it all soak in. No beeping, no blinking lights. Just the sound of the waves and the steady turning of a day that knows exactly what it's doing even without a single clock. Midday heat doesn't arrive politely. It slams into you like someone flinging open the door to a sauna and then walking away. The sky is no longer gentle-eyed, white-hot and pulsing. Shadows shrink into themselves. Even the chickens, usually loud and bustling, seem to mutter and drag their feet like overworked waiters at a lunch rush. You find yourself moving slower, not because you're lazy, but because the island demands it. This is Awake-U, the central segment of the day. A time that ancient Hawaiians treated with caution, reverence, and practical slowness. It's not just lunchtime. It's a liminal period, straddling productivity and pause. If the early morning was a whisper, this is the drumbeat, but with a heavy hand. You duck into the shade of a hala tree. Its long, spiny leaves filter sunlight into wavy lines across the earth. Someone nearby is weaving mats. You watch her hands. Fast, precise, automatic. She doesn't look up, but you can tell she knows you're there. She hums a little, and the rhythm matches the way her fingers fold the leaves. You notice that no one rushes in Awake-U. The work continues, gardening, weaving, repairing, but it's always paced, always respectful of the sun's merciless gaze. People stay close to shade, dip into water, cover their heads with kapa, drink coconut water straight from the source. You try to remember the last time you adjusted your life to fit the sun, instead of blasting a sea and carrying on. Someone hands you a piece of roasted banana wrapped in tea leaf. You unwrap it slowly. The heat from it matches the heat in the air, but it still tastes like relief. Sticky, sweet, grounding. Lunch, if you can call it, that's usually whatever's available. Leftover Yule, coconut meat, smoked fish. It's eaten quietly, with a few words exchanged, and always with one eye on the clouds. Because Awake-U isn't just hot, it's unpredictable. Clouds gather and vanish with no warning. A sudden gust of wind might carry rain, or it might just scatter dust. Farmers use this time to observe the sky more than anything else. It's the part of the day when the weather makes its plans. You hear someone murmur, "Ua hoia, mai ka ehukai." The sea spray is arriving. It's code for, the weather's about to shift. Historians still debate just how much predictive knowledge Hawaiian farmers and fishermen possessed. Some claim they had intuitive relationships with wind patterns and cloud types. Others think much of it was trial and error, passed through generations of subtle record-keeping. But here, watching an old man tilt his head and sniff the air before deciding not to fish that afternoon, you believe the intuitive version. Timekeeping, here, isn't just about when. It's about what's about to happen. You wander to the edge of a Louis field. The taro plants stand shin-deep in water, their thick green leaves glistening. A young woman wades through the rows, humming under her breath as she plucks weeds with her bare hands. Every now and then, she pauses not to rest, but to listen. The sound of insects, the rustling of wind through breadfruit trees, the faint drip-drip of water spilling from one terrace to the next. It's a kind of symphony, and she knows every note. From this, she decides whether to thin more leaves or leave them alone. Whether to open the Oi water channel or wait. No stopwatch, just rhythm. You crouch nearby, try to feel it, the way the land breathes. the tempo of a farming culture that never asked the land to hurry up. The woman notices your curiosity and smiles. "You can hear when it's time," she says, touching her ear. "Not just see." You stay a while longer, letting that sink in. After a time, you walk inland, up toward a small cluster of thatched hail where people are gathered, working with bones. At first, you think it's cooking, but it's not. They're crafting fish hooks. The bones, mostly from pigs, are carved into delicate curves, sharpened, polished. This work is done during a wakia because the light is brightest and precision matters. A badly carved hook could mean no dinner. You ask how long it takes to finish one? A man shrugs and says, 3 shadows. You blink. He points to the shadow of a coconut tree, then to a small pile of half-finished hooks. When the shadow gets there, he says, "I'll be done." That's the unit. Not hours. Shadows. It sounds strange at first. But when you think about it, shadows are pretty reliable, at least here, where the sun tracks the same arc year-round. A moving sundial laid across the land itself. There's even a bit of lore about it. One story tells of a lazy fisherman who couldn't carve hooks fast enough. So he trained a rooster to stand beside him and measure the day with its shadow. It worked for a while until the rooster got bored, wandered off, and got eaten by a dog. The man, left with no rooster clock, starved. Lesson: don't outsource your timekeeping. The joke makes everyone laugh. The moral lands softly. You have to pay attention. Always. Somewhere deeper in the grove, a child is chanting something. The rhythm is off. A few elders smile and correct her softly, repeating the chant with measured syllables. This is part of the day's unspoken purpose, training the memory. Because memory is the closest thing they have to a clock or a library. If you listen to the chant again, it's about tides, the pull of the moon. Which nights to fish, which ones to stay home. The kind of knowledge you don't write down, you'd pass it down. Historians still debate whether the Hawaiians had mnemonic devices comparable to those used in Polynesian navigation schools like those in Micronesia. Some say yes, rhythm, tone, image. Others think Hawaiian knowledge relied more on hands-on ritual than pure memorization. But in this chant, you hear both. A song is a time capsule. Later, as the day drifts toward afternoon, you see a group resting under a kukui tree. They don't talk much, just sip from gourds of cool water, sometimes tossing a few words about the wind or the scent of approaching rain. No one asks, "What time is it?" The question would make no sense here. Instead, they watch how the light changes, the shimmer on the water, the way the sun slants slightly now, angling toward the mountains. Shadows reappear, longer this time, less vertical, more honest. It's the signal that a wakia is winding down, and with it, the tempo begins to shift again. You feel it, less heat, more breeze. That unspoken agreement passing among people. Wrap up the weaving, finish the carving, rinse off the taro mud. It's not quite evening, not yet, but you sense the pivot. You close your eyes for a moment and try to hold on to this rhythm, the heartbeat of a day shaped not by machines, but by stars, by earth, by wind and waves. And when you open them, the angle of the sun has shifted just enough to cast a golden glow across the taro patch. Time has moved, and you didn't miss a thing. By now, the sun has loosened its grip on the land. You feel it in your skin first, the way the heat steps back, giving your pores a break. Then in your breath, which comes easier. And finally, in the sounds around you. The kappa beat has stopped. The fishermen have returned. The children's laughter sounds farther away, like they've begun to gather closer to home. You're entering Owenelb, the late afternoon. It's a quiet descent. Not sudden, not loud. Just the long, sighing exhale of a day winding itself down. You walk slowly now, not because you're tired, though you are, but because the light has changed. It's warm, amber, slanting through the fronds like syrup through a fine comb. Everything is rimmed in gold, even the pigs. There's a saying that floats around this time of Deka, Ule Anna, the sun is falling. It's a poetic way to describe a literal event. And yet it does more than tell you the hour. It tells you how to feel, slower, softer, like someone dimmed the lights before a lullaby. A group of elders sits in a semicircle near the mouth of a cave. They aren't talking much, just shelling kukui nuts, occasionally sharing a joke, the kind that doesn't need explaining. You sit near them without asking, and no one tells you to leave. That's how this time of day works. It gathers people gently. Soon, someone starts telling a story. You don't catch the beginning, but it doesn't matter. The voice is steady, sanded smooth by years of use. It dips and rises in slow waves. You hear something about a shark god, a stolen canoe, and a clever girl who turns into a bird. Or maybe she was always a bird. It's hard to tell, and you don't mind. The tale isn't meant to be a lesson with bullet points. It's meant to live in the air like smoke. Heard once, remembered forever. Historians still argue whether stories like these were fixed oral traditions, or if they changed slightly with every telling. One side says, no, these were sacred genealogies, mo oka, how preserved by designated chanters, never altered. Others insist the stories lived and breathed, and the tellers shaped the rhythm based on the wind, the crowd, the mood of the ocean that day. Sitting here, with the sun melting into the sea and the firelight catching in someone's eyes. You believe both could be true? The rhythm of Unwind is storytelling and also maintenance. You watch a man sharpen a stone adze, one slow stroke at a time. He doesn't need to finish it tonight. He just needs to bring it a little closer to ready. Another woman checks the canoe lashings, not because they're afraid, but because it's a good time to catch problems early. This is the hour for caretaking. Not just things, but memory. Children aren't told to sit still, but they do. They lean against their elders. They pick at bark or spin tiny bits of rope. All the while, they're listening. You walk toward the edge of a pond where an old woman dips taro stems into water, inspecting them one by one. You ask her what she's doing. She says, "I'm checking tomorrow." That's how it's phrased. Not checking the plants, not preparing, just tomorrow. Because in old Hawaiian life, Unwind was about anticipation. It was about reading the signs in today's air, today's plants, today's silences, and deciding what kind of tomorrow might be coming. You ask her what she sees. She sniffs, looks at the mountain, points at the wind ruffling the top of a kukui tree. "Not fishing weather," she mutters, "but good for planting." You wouldn't have known any of that, but she does, 'cause this is her clock. A lifetime of afternoons filled with observing how shadows fall, how birds behave, how certain flowers fold early if the night's going to be cold. A dog trots past, tongue out, follows a trail of roasted breadfruit skin. A little girl chases after him, but slowly. Even she understands. The rush of morning is gone. Now we drift. You find yourself walking past an empty field. It's dirt-tilled and waiting. A single rock sits at the edge, casting a long shadow across the earth. That shadow used to mean something. In fact, in some Hayu sacred temples, priests watch stones like these carefully. Some say they aligned with equinoxes or solstices. Others believe they were more personal time markers for a specific chief's calendar. Historians still can't agree. Were these sacred sunstones part of a larger astronomical system? Or were they isolated tools, more about ritual than science? The jury's out. But you're looking at the shadow now, and you get the sense that this land is whispering something ancient, even if no one alive remembers the exact translation. The shadow moves. The color of the air deepens. You hear conch shells in the distant short bursts, not the long blow of sunrise. Maybe it's someone calling in the fishermen. Maybe it's nothing. But your spine registers it anyway. It feels like punctuation. You reach a small rise that overlooks a stretch of beach. The sand is dappled now, pocked with crab holes. Two boys are throwing stones into the surf. Not really aiming, just ... throwing. You sit and watch, and no one talks. This is the silence of Oenalb, the exhale between work and rest. The part of the day where time itself seems to breathe slower, as though it too is getting ready for sleep. You see a canoe pulled up on the shore, half filled with seaweed. Its netting has been arranged in coils, so neat they look like they were braided. A man leans against the hull, eyes closed. Not sleeping, just still. And somewhere nearby, the low thud of a pahu drum begins. It's not a call to dance. Not yet. It's a heart sound, deep, gentle. It marks the beginning of evening ceremony. You make your way toward the sound. A group of people have gathered near a flat clearing. There's no stage, just earth, fire, and bodies moving slowly into position. It's not a tourist show. It's not even really a performance. It's practice, daily ritual, and part of the timing of the day. Because for many traditional Hawaiians, Onalb was when the body shifted into another rhythm. One of discipline, control, dance. You watch as a teenage boy plants his feet wide, arms extended, eyes locked ahead. His shoulders tremble with the effort of stillness. A kumuhula, his teacher, walks slowly around him, correcting posture with a touch, not a word. There is no timer, no clock telling him how long to hold the pose. Only the teacher's breath, the drum's beat, the fading sun. You stay until the fire starts to crackle louder than the voices. Then, as the last of the sunlight bleeds out behind the mountains, everyone rises one by one and begins to walk home. The air is cooler now, almost wet. Somewhere behind you, a night bird calls. The day has slipped behind its final curtain, and night. Night is waiting just behind the trees. Darkness arrives softly, like someone closing a heavy kappa curtain across the sky. You don't see it all at once, you feel it. In the way the wind picks up, brushing the tops of trees. In the sudden hush that settles over the landscape. Even the chickens go quiet, as if they too know that this next part of the day isn't theirs. This is a high-hierly evening, the in-between of sunlight and true night, the candlelit chapter of the Hawaiian day. You follow the scent of smoke curling from a small cooking fire. Someone's roasting breadfruit, and the sweet, nutty smell clings to the air like a lullaby. There's laughter nearby, but softer now. The kind you hear around the end of a good day when there's nothing urgent left to do. A family sits cross-legged in a circle, passing bowls of poi and small bundles wrapped in tea leaves. Dinner isn't a formal affair. No table, no cutlery, just hands, bowls, and time. You sit close. Someone offers you a strip of dried akatuna, cured and firm. You chew slowly, trying not to ruin the rhythm. People speak in low voices, but you catch bits of conversation. Fishing stories, small gossip, a toddler who fell asleep holding a crab and refused to let go. Someone jokes about a man who mistook a mo'oa legendary lizard spirit for a banana log in the dark. The punchline comes with a shrug and a bite of taro. You smile, chewing, listening, settling into the truth of this hour. Food isn't just fuel, it's how time tastes. Historians still argue about the structure of traditional Hawaiian meals, whether they followed rigid protocols or were more casual, shaped by what was available. Some sources mention formal eating houses for men, separate from those of women and children. Others believe these practices shifted over time or varied between islands and Ahupua. But right now, here on the ground, there's no separation. Just warmth, wood smoke, and the kind of ease that tells you the hard work is done for the day. You look up. The sky has turned the color of deep indigo. Not quite black, not quite blue. A few stars wink into view, brightest first, then the quieter ones. People begin to move toward the hail, the houses, not in a rush, just in a tide. The evening hours are precious but quiet. You walk beside a woman carrying a bundle of dried tea leaves. You ask what for. Pillow stuffing, she says with a grin. Unless you'd rather sleep on rocks. You both laugh. Ha ha ha. And then she adds, more gently. It smells nice though. Keeps away bad dreams. You believe her. The way she says it, it's not superstition, it's fact. Like the stars appearing overhead. You reach a wide clearing just beyond the homes, where a group is seated around a fire. But no one speaks. One man stands in the glow of the flames. He's older, his back slightly bent, eyes like cooled lava rock. He begins a chant, and his voice drips into the darkness like warm ink. You don't understand all the words, but the sound itself is a language. It rises, falls, vibrates in your chest. The others respond with a harmony that feels older than the fire. This is only a chant, not meant to be sung, not quite spoken. It tells of genealogies, gods, migrations, and moons. It weaves time backward. And just like that, you realize this moment is not just an evening ritual. It's a time machine. No clocks, no calendars, no alerts. Just voice, breath, flame. Historians often note the incredible specificity of Hawaiian genealogical chants, some stretching back dozens of generations. But the fringe debate lies in their accuracy. Could these recited lineages truly preserve so many names unbroken? Were these chants memory feats, or did they carry metaphor layered within metaphor? Either way, you feel the weight of it now. This isn't entertainment. It's timekeeping through legacy. When the chant ends, there's a silence so complete you can hear the distant crash of waves. Then someone rises, brushes their hands on their hips, and declares, "Too many chiefs, not enough coconuts." And the laughter bubbles again, returning you to earth. The stars are fully out now. You lie back on the grass. It's still warm from the day, but cooling quickly. Above you, the sky is crowded with light. The Milky Way spills across it in a drunken smear. A long white arch that stretches from one side of the island to the other. A child points upward. "There's MDUI's canoe," she says, tracing the curve of a constellation with her finger. You follow her hand. Sure enough, it looks like a canoe, if you squint. The stars were the first calendar here, the first wristwatch, the first GPS. You remember reading about Kiolo, Kalua, and the other names given to months, not based on numbers, but on stars and seasons, on when certain fish appeared, when certain birds sang. There's still debate over how standardized this lunar stellar calendar was. Some say every island had its own system, tailored to its microclimate. Others argue for a more unified model, shaped by shared Polynesian ancestry and long-distance voyaging. Either way, the result was the same. Time was relational. It wasn't imposed, emerged. You sit up as someone lights a torch made from kukui oil. The flame flickers, throwing shadows across the ground. A woman begins telling a Moalaloa narrative, part history, part myth. Tonight's tale is about the moon. How it once lived in the ocean and had to be fished out by a clever girl using a net woven from spider silk and bird feathers. The moon, grateful, agreed to rise every night so she could see her way home. Is it true? Of course not, and yet maybe. You feel the truth of it in your body. Not because it happened, but because it means something. The moon appears over the mountain ridge, full and yellow, rising like a slow drumbeat. You understand now why people used to plan everything by her glow. Planting, fishing, ceremonies, even haircuts, some say. You walk down toward the beach, guided only by moonlight. The sand is cold on your feet. You pause at the water's edge. The ocean at night feels different, bigger, wilder, a dark, breathing thing. Behind you, the village is winding down, fires dimming, voices softening, the rhythm slowing further still. You sit at the edge of it all, looking up, then down, then inward. This is a Haihit, but it's also something deeper. A pocket of time, too gentle to name. You let it hold you. No clocks, no rush. Just the long, moonlit breath of the world. You don't remember falling asleep. Maybe it happened under the stars. Maybe you'd wandered back to the house of dried tea leaves, curled against a woven mat. But when you wake, the world is different. Quieter, closer, wrapped in shadows so complete, even the moon feels shy. This is Mo, the deep night more a space than a time. It's when breath slows, limbs stretch, and dreams have the full stage. You rise slowly, not because you're restless, but because something pulled you from sleep. A whisper, a breeze. The weightless pressure of silence itself, you slip outside. The village sleeps. No fires burn, no footsteps echo. You walk between houses with the softest feet. It's not fear, it's reverence. This hour feels sacred. Somewhere, a baby fusses, then settles. A dog stirs, then curls tighter. The sounds are so minor, they only confirm the stillness. You look up, the stars are at their most extravagant now. The entire sky pulses. Not in the science fiction sense, but with the rhythm of existence. The kind you can only see when everything else has stopped. The Milky Way has shifted from its evening position. It's now sweeping directly overhead, east to west. And you remember what someone told you earlier, that this change was a sign, a whisper of night moving toward morning. The Hawaiians didn't just use the stars to navigate across oceans. They used them to navigate sleep, dream, even destiny. One of the older men had called this part of the night Wo-ka-Haimoloa, the time of deep slumber. But others believed it wasn't just for rest, it was for journeying. That's when you notice her. An elder woman sitting on a low stone bench outside her house. She's not surprised to see you. She motions gently for you to sit. You do. She tells you without preamble that some dreams are more than dreams. In Hawaiian tradition, they're called mohan soul dreams. Their visits, warnings, lessons, sometimes ancestors speak in them, sometimes gods. Historians still debate how literally these dreams were taken. Were they metaphors? Were they spiritual law? Or were they something in between, a night-bound version of logic that didn't need daylight-esque permission? The woman beside you doesn't seem concerned with scholarly disagreement. She simply says, "You're lucky to be awake right now." You ask why. She shrugs, as if the answer is too big for language. Because some things only visit when the sky is heavy, and it is heavy now. So quiet, you can hear your own heart beat against the air. She begins to hum. Low, circular notes that don't quite form a melody. Not lullaby, not chant, something in between. You feel your muscles slacken. There's a word for this moment, ka-pi, nuitha, great night. It's not always on a calendar. It lives in the way clouds part, in the way certain stars refuse to blink, in the breath between tides. You think about how night divided time, to not just by phases of the moon, but by depth. Some periods were reserved for speaking to spirits, others for healing. Others still for sacred rest, where silence wasn't just golden, it was required. In the far corner of the clearing, you see a figure lighting a small kukui lamp. It doesn't illuminate much, just the immediate hands working with bark, string, and something soft that might be feathers. You walk over, slowly. The figure is making a small kai, a carved representation of a spirit or god. The face is abstract wide eyes, no mouth. It's meant to hold presence, not personality. You ask what it's for. The carver smiles without looking up, for asking, for telling. This late-night carving isn't hobby or craft. It's part of the relationship people once had with the unseen world. When daylight faded, attention turned inward, toward dreams, toward spirits, toward memory. You think of your own dreams, how some feel louder than others, how some echo after you wake like a note still ringing. The carver pauses, wipes his hands, and hands you the small wooden image. You hold it. It's warm. Far above, a shooting star slices the sky. In Hawaiian lore, falling stars could be omens. Sometimes of birth, sometimes of death, sometimes just arrival. But again, scholars differ. Was this celestial divination a formal science, a folk tradition, or the poetic stitching of experience to sky? You walk slowly back toward the woman on the bench. She's humming again. You sit beside her, but this time you're not looking at the stars. You're watching the dark between them. She asks, almost absent-mindedly, "Do you remember your dream?" You pause. You do. A little. A bird with too many wings. Cave with singing walls. A face you almost recognized. You tell her. She nods. Not with analysis, not with answers. Just acknowledgement. "That's good," she says. Sometimes the dream is just practicing. You don't ask what that means. You close your eyes. And then open them again because something new is stirring. The eastern sky has lightened a shade. Just barely. Just a nudge, but enough to feel it. A faint breeze brushes your cheek, and with it, the scent of ginger. The earth begins to shift, not physically, but emotionally, like it's preparing to breathe in again. You and the elder watch in silence. Somewhere behind you, a rooster considers crowing, but changes its mind. This part of the night has no official name. It's not Welly Welly, nor yet Pia Kahi. It's just the liminal breath between dreams and waking. The woman rises, slow but steady. She gathers her shawl. "Time to let the sun try again," she murmurs. And just like that, she slips into her house, leaving you alone under a sky that is no longer black, but charcoal. You sit a little longer. You don't want to rush this. The stars begin to blink out, one by one. Not all at once, not all at once. The brightest hold on the longest, as if unwilling to give up their place. You think of the generations before you, how they greeted the night, not with fear, but with trust, with ritual, with attention. No clocks tick, no screens blink, no alarms chirp. Only the steady pulse of night turning into something else. You lie back on the ground one last time, watching the first faint streaks of color drag across the eastern horizon. A bird calls. Then another. The dark isn't gone yet, but it's softening. And you realize sleep here doesn't just happen during the night. It is the night. It contains the night. And as it slips away, you don't feel tired anymore. You feel ready. You're still lying on the grass when the first real light slices through the horizon thin, sharp, and golden. It's not an explosion, not a drum roll. Sunrise in old Hawaii arrives like a whispered invitation, a hush of lavender sky that slowly unfolds into warmth. It doesn't ask for attention. It earns it. You sit up. Your back a little stiff from the earth, but your mind wide open. A rooster finally crows, proud and early. Then another, somewhere farther off, joins in with competitive flair. You get the sense this will escalate. Roosters do not do moderation. This is Kaka Ahaya Kutha, true morning. But it's not just a time, it's a signal. The shift from sacred inwardness to outward motion. You wander toward the nearest path where a woman is already sweeping the earth in front of her hail with a bundle of tied tea leaves. Not to move dust, really it's more of a ritual than a chore. A daily conversation with the land. We're awake now. Let's begin again. She nods at you, but doesn't speak. Her movements are measured, gentle, as if she doesn't want to startle the morning itself. Nearby, a group of men gather with woven baskets slung over their shoulders. You recognize one from the night before, the man who carved the spirit figure. He's laughing now, showing off a gnarled piece of driftwood shaped like a chicken's foot. The others respond with mock horror, and someone mutters something about bad fishing luck. If he brings that thing on the canoe, you follow them. Down a dirt trail lined with ferns and ginger, where early dew clings to your ankles. The air is still cool, but growing warmer by the minute. The path opens to the shore, where long canoes lie waiting like resting bones. Smooth, shiny with salt, and purposeful. Fishing in the old Hawaiian world wasn't just an economy, it was timekeeping. You fished according to tides, moons, star positions, wind directions, and ancestral knowledge passed down like a family recipe. You help push a canoe into the shallows, feet sinking into wet sand. Someone grins and tosses you a paddle. The sea accepts your arrival with a gentle lapping sound. You push off, and soon you're gliding. Out here, with only horizon around you, time feels enormous. But it's not directionless. The lead fisherman glances upward, measuring the sky. He squints at a bright star still lingering near the edge of dawn. "We'll go north," he announces, almost to himself. That star isn't just pretty, it's Hakale, the guiding star. Part of a larger stellar compass used by navigators to orient themselves long before GPS and sextants. Historians debate how standardized these celestial systems were. Were they deeply formalized maps, memorized and trained? Or more intuitive, passed down through watching and repetition? Either way, it works. The boat moves confidently, as if the ocean's already told them where the fish will be. You trail your fingers in the water. There's talk among the crew about the best time to catch a skipjack tuna. Someone swears it's best just after a full moon. Another argues it depends more on wind direction. Someone else just says, the fish know before we do, and it's not a joke. Fish, birds, tides, they were all clocks before clocks. A complex mesh of natural behavior that Hawaiians read like you read your smartphone notifications. Back on shore, others are already busy with land-based rhythms. You hear the thud of kalo being pounded into poi, a wet, rhythmic sound like a heartbeat in clay. Someone tends to the IMU pit, peeling back layers of banana leaf to check on slow-roasted pig. A boy jogs past you, carrying a bunch of sugarcane. His bare feet slap the earth in a syncopated beat. You return to the beach with the fisherman, just as the sun climbs fully into the sky. It paints everything gold: the sea, the trees, even your skin. The catch is modest, enough to share. Not a feast, but a fortune nonetheless. A crowd gathers around to help divide it up. There's no argument, no auction. Just quiet efficiency. A portion goes to the elders, another to the kahuna, then the families. A final small share is placed on a stone near the forest's edge. An offering. You ask someone what it's for. "Thanks," he says simply. "For the fish, for the luck." You nod, but he sees your puzzled face. "They don't always come," he adds, more softly, "even when the stars are right. And that's the thing about this kind of time, it's never guaranteed. It's relational. You don't command it, you ask." As the sun lifts higher, shadows shrink. The heat arrives in full. Someone begins to chant as they work, a rhythmic call to the gods of the sea. His voice is clear, sharp, carried by the wind. The chant includes the names of days Po, Akahi, Po Alua, Po Akolabet. They don't map neatly onto our Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Instead, they trace movement, cycles, the mood of the moon, the appetite of tides. Historians still wrestle with whether this calendar was primarily lunar or lunisolar. Did it reset monthly? Was there intercalation, leap months? The answer may be all of the above or none. You only know what you see. People moving not by imposed TikToks, but by a lived rhythm. Morning is for action, for gathering, working, sustaining. But no one is counting down. No one's late. You help carry bundles back toward the homes. Leaves rustle above you. Someone plays a nose flute, soft and warm. Its tune is barely audible over the distant crash of waves, but it makes your chest feel wide. By midday, the village hums. Children chase each other across sunlit paths. Women weave lahala mats in the shade of a hala tree, fingers quick and precise. The mats aren't rushed. They'll be finished when they're finished. You pause to drink cool water from a carved gourd. It tastes earthy, like the morning itself. You find yourself wondering how long it's been since sunrise. Not in hours, but in feeling. You realize you're not tired, even after all this motion. There's no drain, no burnout, only flow. Time in this place doesn't bite. It invites. You pass a pair of older men, debating whether it's time to repair a wall near the taro patch. One says yes. The other says wait until the next moon phase. Neither is in a hurry. They know the wall won't sprout legs and walk off. The sun moves again. Shadows lengthen, and the world subtly shifts toward afternoon. It's not announced, it just becomes. You notice people beginning to slow. The songs change, the pace softens. And you begin to feel it too, that shift, not an end, just a turn. As if the day is gently telling you, enough. The shadows stretch longer now, fingers crawling across the packed earth. The heat that pressed down on your shoulders earlier has begun to lift, like someone slowly drawing back a thick blanket. You're not exactly tired, but your body knows something's ending. You follow the rhythm. Back in the village, the soundscape has changed. No more pounding of kalo, no bustling groups sorting fish. What you hear now is softer. The rustle of palm leaves in the breeze, the low murmur of voices, a quiet laugh drifting from a group seated under a kukui tree. This is the time of winding down. In Hawaiian, the late afternoon is often called awanalb. It's not quite evening, but it isn't the industrious part of day anymore. There's a looseness to everything. Even the air moves more slowly. Someone waves you over a group sitting cross-legged around a woven mat, their hands busy. They're braiding cord from how bark, fingers moving in practiced patterns. You sit, and someone hands you a strand. You try to copy the motion. It's not hard. It's just slower than you're used to. And that's the point. Everything now is about easing. No abrupt stops. No sudden silence. The work doesn't end. It drifts into something lighter, more reflective. One man tells a story as he braids. It's about a canoe lost at sea and the navigator who used birds to find his way back. You listen closely, not just to the plot, but to the pacing. The pauses, the glances. The story isn't just information, it's part of the slowing. Time here is narrative, not number. Historians have long debated how much structure existed in Hawaiian horekeeping. Some point to precise chants and rituals timed to the position of the sun, suggesting a kind of natural clockwork. Others argued that flexibility reigned and time was interpreted, not imposed. Likely, both are true. The structure was there, but so was the permission to bend it. You sit back. Someone brings a small bowl of sweetened ulamash soft purple sweet potato mixed with coconut milk. It's warm from the sun, not a fire. The sweetness lingers. To your left, an old woman begins to chant. Her voice is thin but confident, like a thread held tight. The chant is about Lono, god of fertility and peace. It praises clouds and mist, asks for gentle rain. You recognize the rhythm, not just the words, but the cadence itself. You've heard it before. It's one of the chants used during Makahiki, the months-long season of rest and reflection. A time when war was forbidden and feasting was encouraged. The year's clock turned not by machinery, but by sacred cycles. You ask when Makahiki begins. One of the weavers replies, when the Pleiades rise at sunset. You blink. That's not a date. That's a moment in the sky. You glance upward. The sun is dipping now, close to the tops of the trees. The sky begins to shift toward orange and rose. But there's still time. There's always a little more time. You walk to the edge of the village where a cluster of teenagers are gathered around a man with a long wooden staff. He demonstrates kapu kuaialua, an ancient form of martial training. It's not for battle today, it's for memory. For tradition, even training, even motion is different at this hour. Deliberate, measured. No one's barking orders. The teacher corrects a stance, then steps back with a nod. The students adjust. Try again. You notice the shadows again. They re long enough now to touch each other, one hut S shadow, reaching for another S. It's like the village is folding in on itself. Evening is near. You follow the others to a central clearing where a fire has been lit. Not for cooking, for gathering. You sit. Others arrive slowly. Not everyone, just whoever feels drawn. There's no roll call, no schedule. The fire crackles. A soft rhythm begins, someone tapping two ipu gourds. Together, in slow tempo. Boom, tap. Boom, tap. A young girl steps forward and begins to dance. It's hula, but not the kind tourists expect. This is hula kahiko, the ancient form. It's low, grounded. Her movements are deliberate, each gesture tied to a word in the chant. Her face stays focused. She's not performing. She's telling. The chant is about time. You recognize phrases khe, the night, kl, the sun. There's mention of kalana mahina, the moon calendar. A list of moon phases pours from the chanter's lips. Hilo, hoka, kelua, o kalu. Each name holds meaning. Each name tells fishermen when to cast their nets, farmers when to plant or harvest, priests when to hold certain ceremonies. And yet, Evan, this list isn't rigid. You recall a line you overheard earlier? Not every old night is empty, meaning even the bad moon phases aren't useless. They just require care. Historians still argue whether Hawaiians truly saw time as cyclical or linear. Was it a spiral, a loop, a tide? Some say the lunar calendar was deeply hierarchical, assigning value to each night. Others claim it was more poetic than practical and emotional timepiece. Your bones don't care about academic debates. They just know that right now, in this firelit circle, time feels like music. And music, like time, isn't something you hold. It's something you feel pass through you. The dance ends. The girl bows. Everyone breathes. A small feast appears next on a royal banquet, just shared food. Poi, fish, cooked greens. You eat without rush. You taste every layer. Someone tells a joke. Another teases him for repeating the same one every week. Laughter ripples. The fire pops like it's chuckling too. You lean back, full. Not just from food, from belonging. The sun is nearly gone now. Just a red smudge on the horizon. You realize you haven't looked at anything that ticks all day, and yet you've known what time it was. You've felt it in the air, in the people, in your own chest. A dog curls up near the fire. A toddler falls asleep in her mother's lap, mouth still sticky with taro. Someone starts another chant, softer this time. A prayer of thanks. Not for the day, but for the rhythm of the day. And you close your eyes, not to sleep yet, but just to listen, to feel. Because time here isn't lost, it isn't spent, it isn't saved, it's lived. And now it's slipping toward night again. Night doesn't fall in Hawaii, it arrives. Like a familiar guest who lets herself in, already knowing where the light switch is. One moment the sky glows, apricot and lavender. The next, it deepens into velvet, and the stars begin to peek through with casual brilliance. Like they were always there, just waiting for the right cue. You're still seated by the fire, but the crowd has thinned. A few quiet voices linger, talking low, leaning into the hush. Someone plays a ukulele softly, just brushing the strings, no melody yet, just suggestion. You tip your head back, and there they are. The stars, and not just stars patterns. Curves and clusters and dancing pinpricks that once mapped out entire lives. Overhead, a man begins pointing upward with a long stick. His voice is calm but sure, and he's naming things. Makali, I. Ka, Hi. Hio, and Keiki, and Iwakeli, I. You blink as the sky turns into a canvas of meaning. It's not a random mess of lights anymore. It's a clock, a calendar, a record. You learn that in traditional Hawaiian astronomy, Stars weren't decorations, they were guides. Not just for voyaging, but for farming, fishing, healing, and yes, even storytelling. And now, you're part of it. The star lecturer, who never once calls himself a teacher, tells a story about Ka-Elo, the month when the Pleiades rise high at sunset. It marks the middle of Makahiki, the time of peace. People remember this moment, not with dates, but with the position of stars and the taste of rain. You glance around. Few kids are lying on their backs, whispering and pointing upward, as if trying to memorize the sky before it changes again. One of them sits up suddenly and shouts, "I see the shark." Everyone laughs, but the old man nods. "Good eye." "That's Manu," he says. "That one swims through the seasons." The Hawaiian night sky wasn't seen in hours. It was seen in phases. Time didn't tick, it shimmered. And what about the moon? You spot her now, Mahina, bold and full, low in the eastern sky. She's still climbing, and already the light she casts is strong enough to blur the edges of the trees. In old Hawaii, the moon was not just romantic lighting. She was the keeper of Kanaka time, the time of humans. The lunar calendar Kalana Mahina divided the month into 30 nights, each with its own name, energy, and purpose. Tonight is Hokanir, the full moon, a night considered highly productive and abundant. Farmers would plant, fishermen would sail. Lovers might sneak away into the forest, guided by moonlight, too generous to ignore. You hear someone nearby whisper that babies conceived on Haku nights are said to be strong, especially if they're born under a waxing moon. The group around the fire murmurs their amusement. And just like that, a new layer of time unfolds, not just when. But what kind of when? Not every night is equal. Not every hour is just 60 minutes. Some nights are charged, others are neutral. A few are better for rest. Historians still discuss how consistent the Kalana Mahina was across different islands. Some argue that each district had its own slight variation, influenced by geography, custom, or the wisdom of that area's kahuna. Others insist there was more standardization than we give credit for. Either way, it worked. People lived by it. A young woman begins to chant now a moon chant. Her voice threads through the fire, smoke like silk. You don't catch every word, but you feel it. The pulse, the reverence. You realize something. This isn't primitive astronomy. It's not quaint. It's precise, layered, alive. As she finishes, a low conch shell sounds from somewhere deeper in the village. A long, resonant note that travels like a ripple through water. You don't know what it means, but it doesn't feel like a warning. It feels like punctuation. Like a comma in the night. A man near you mutters, "Time to put it all to bed." And indeed, one by one, people begin to drift off, some to their homes. Others to small private shelters nestled under the trees. A few stay near the fire, just sitting there, eyes half closed. You stretch and rise, the moonlight painting your skin pale gold. You take a slow walk through the village. You pass a woman scattering salt around her doorway, not ritualistically, just another nighttime habit. Maybe it's spiritual, maybe it's practical, maybe both. In the distance, you hear someone singing to a child. A lullaby, but layered with meaning. Each verse connects the child to a time of day, a direction, a moon phase. When you were born, the woman sings. The stars were lined in a straight canoe. You imagine growing up with that as your origin story. Not just a birth certificate, but a sky chart. A universe that welcomed you in. You arrive at a small stream and dip your fingers in the water. It's cool, but not cold. It feels ... ancient, like it remembers more than you do. And again, you wonder, how did they do it? How did they live so in tune, without watches, without deadlines, without calendars taped to refrigerators? The answer, of course, is that they didn't need clocks. They had everything they needed: sky, sea, birds, fish, rain, flowers, chance, bones, and blood. Their bodies kept time. Their land kept time, and time was given, not taken. You wander back toward your sleeping area. Small hut, just enough shelter to curl under. There's a mat already rolled out, a soft kapa cloth beside it. You lie down. The breeze moves through the trees like breath. The stars blink at you, quiet but certain. You think back on everything you've seen, sunrise to starlight, tides and taro. Chance and chickenfoot, driftwood knot. You realize this day wasn't a performance. It wasn't designed for visitors. It just was. And even now, it isn't over. Night is just the next phase. You close your eyes, letting the sounds guide you. Crickets, distant waves, someone still softly strumming a ukulele. And the moon. Always the moon. Silent, glowing, watching. You don't need to know the hour. You don't even need to know what comes next. Because time in this world doesn't rush you. It waits. Somewhere in your half-dream, a rooster crows not urgently, but like he's just checking in. The sound threads into your consciousness slowly, like the sunlight does, pressing against your eyelids. You stretch, roll to one side, and open your eyes. The world is lighter. Not full morning yet, just that soft silver blue hour when the shadows are still long and dew clings to every blade of grass. You sit up. The air smells like moisture and wood smoke, and something sweet, maybe roasted breadfruit from the fire pit. You've made it through another night without looking at a clock. And time keeps unfolding. As the village stirs, you notice people rising not at the same time, but with the same intention. There's no bell, no announcement, just a collective hum, a shift in breath, like a tide changing direction. You wander toward the main clearing again, and this time you hear something new. Discussion. A group of elders sitting on a low bench made of driftwood and palm fronds are mid-conversation. Their hands make gestures as precise as punctuation marks, and their expressions shift between thoughtfulness and amused disbelief. You sit nearby and listen. They're talking about calendars, not the stone-hewn, moon-etched, poetically woven calendars you've grown used to hearing about, but something older, stranger, less certain. One man recalls stories passed down about Ki-ai Paku, petroglyphs, carved into lava rock that some believe were early timekeepers. Spirals, dots, notches in stone that may have tracked sun paths or moon cycles. He shrugs, not dismissing the theory, but not married to it either. Another woman speaks of a particular hilltop on the Big Island where, if you stand just right on the solstice, the sun rises between two specific rocks. A natural clock, perhaps, or maybe just a coincidence with good lighting. Historians still argue over how formalized these early timekeeping tools were. Some believe Hawaiians engineered sacred observatories, aligning with celestial events as meticulously as the Mayans or Egyptians. Others argue the knowledge was fluid, passed through chant and memory rather than stone and shadow. You sip from a bowl of wai, cool and clear. It tastes like memory. A young man joins the group, barefoot and energized. He's just returned from a trek into the hills where he's been collecting aolii branches for dye. But he brings news, too. He found another kapuka. You recognize the word now. It means a pocket of old-growth forest, untouched by recent lava flows. But in conversation, it also means a pocket of time. A place where older practices persist, where you can walk through trees and still feel the tempo of another century. The elders nod. You decide to go see it. A short hike later, you're standing in a different world. Tall jai, trees with red lawalahua blossoms. Mossy rocks and ferns, so thick you could lose a small child in them. No signs, no fences, just forest and breath. And there, near a curve in the stream, you find them two upright stones, weathered by generations of rain. No plaque, no clear function, just presence. You ask your guide, "What are these?" He shrugs. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. And somehow, that's the right answer. You sit down beside the stones, not because you expect them to tell you something, but because you want to hear whatever silence has to say. It doesn't disappoint. A breeze picks up and the trees whisper. Leaves flutter like old pages. Somewhere nearby, a bird sings a single, precise note, then waits. You begin to think about the idea of lost time. Not in the modern sense, scrolling your phone until you forget what hour it is, but in the historical sense. Time that once was and no longer is. The time of those whose names have faded. The beat of days that didn't make it into textbooks. And yet, here it is, a remnant, a rhythm, a heartbeat still echoing between rocks. You wonder what other clues remain. Back in the village, you return to a small hail pili where someone has begun unrolling a cloth map. Not a map in the Western sense with grid lines and scale, but a mo'ok auhau, a genealogy map. It traces not just people, but events. Births tied to storms, deaths tied to eclipses, alliances made under certain moons. This is how memory was kept. And you realize this was also a kind of timekeeping. Every name, every branch was time-stamped by when. Not by calendar, but by cosmic context. A girl asks a question. How do we know which stories are real? A pause. One elder replies, if enough people remember it, the same wit's real enough. You don't argue. You walk again. Slowly now, as the day warms. Past fish ponds reflecting the sky. Past taro patches where farmers kneel waist-deep in mud, humming without noticing. Past a carved bowl left on a ledge, half filled with rainwater. And then something unexpected. A small rock tower, carefully stacked. Not tall, just 5 stones, balanced in improbable defiance of gravity. A child's game, a marker, a moment. You don't know, but you feel it. A tiny monument to something, a mood, a message, or maybe just the passage of one quiet hour. You sit nearby, pulling your knees in, watching the clouds, and time moves. Not fast, not slow, just forward. It occurs to you that every hour today has felt different. Not by the sun's position alone, but by tone, by task, by the feeling in your own chest. Some parts of the day are wide and energetic. Others feel like narrow corridors where even thought moves carefully. And that's the heart of this kind of timekeeping. It's emotional, sensory, embodied. The Western clock says, you have 30 minutes. But the Hawaiian sky says, you have until this bird stops singing. And that bird, still going. You, Dante, realize you VA drifted into a nap until the sound of drumming begins to thread through your dreams. It's not loud, not frantic, just steady, like a pulse, like footsteps approaching from far away. You sit up slowly, still nestled in the shade of the trees, and realize the sky has softened. Afternoon has settled in, painting everything in long amber strokes. The breeze carries the scent of roasted taro and salt water, and somewhere nearby, children are laughing. The drumming grows clearer. You follow it, step by step, back toward the heart of the village, where you find a group gathered in a circle. Not for work, not for ceremony, for play. 2 young men are beating on pahu drums, smiling at each other as they trade rhythms. Around them, others dance casual, barefoot, joyfully improvised. And as you stand there, caught in the sway of it all, you realize something? This is time too. Recreational time, celebration time. Unstructured, uncounted, but deeply felt. Not every moment in Hawaiian life was weighted with purpose. There was room for play, for pleasure, for music and dance and doing nothing in particular. And that space, that freedom was protected. Just as essential as the hours spent fishing or planting or praying. One older man seated nearby sees the curiosity on your face and waves you over. He pats the ground next to him, then hands you a piece of roasted breadfruit wrapped in tea leaf. Warm, sweet, perfect. He speaks softly, almost conspiratorially. You know, back before clocks, time had flavor, he says. You could taste what kind of day it was. You didn't need to ask what time it was. You just listened to your belly, your bones. You chew slowly, savoring the breadfruit. He's not wrong, he continues. Now we chase time. Then we walked beside it. And there it is, again the refrain. The difference between keeping time and being with it. The drumming fades, replaced by the gentle sound of ukulele. Someone sings a song about waves. The words are lighthearted but layered with meaning. A double entendre, perhaps, or just a joke too local for outsiders. Either way, the laughter it provokes is full and real. You lean back on your hands, letting the sun hit your face. Time, right now, feels like a warm bowl of hurried, nourishing, shared. Still, you wonder, what happened when Hawaiians needed to be exact? What if they had to know a precise momentan alignment, a ritual, a signal to act? Your guide, sensing your curiosity, leads you later to a ridge overlooking the sea. There, nestled between the trees, sits a small stone platform. Unassuming, quiet, but carefully placed. This was a Hea Kilo Hoke, he says, a temple for watching the stars. Here, the position of the sun at solstice or equinox could be marked. Here, the moon's shadow at certain times of year told priests when to begin ceremonies. Here, timing was sacred and exact. You sit in silence for a moment, imagining a kahuna standing here, wrapped in kapa, holding a polished stick to the horizon line, waiting for the sun to dip just so. Precision, yes, but not mechanical, 'cause even in the most structured moments, nature was the clock. The guide tells you something else on certain nights. Torches would be lit along the ridge to signal the start of Makahiki, the season of peace and renewal. People in neighboring valleys would watch for the fire, then light their own. A chain of flame, passing time from one heart to the next. You feel that flicker in your chest, even now. Historians debate how coordinated these torch signals really were. Some say they were meticulously timed, tied to stellar calculations. Others argue they were more symbolically about schedule, more about momentum. Either way, the torches burned. The people responded. Back in the village, you notice another thing, the absence of noise. Not silence, there's always sound, but no alarms, no buzzes or beeps or alerts. Time here doesn't interrupt, it unfolds, and that changes how people behave. A woman weaving a mat nearby does so with unhurried grace. Her fingers move with a rhythm set by memory, not deadline. When she pauses, it's not with frustration, but with breath. She sips some awasais and continues. You watch this, mesmerized, and think about your own life. The rush, the time blocking, the eternal panic of being behind. Here, there is no behind. There is only where you are. Later that evening, as the sky begins its long descent into dusk, another gathering forms. This time, it's more formal. People carry torches. Children are hushed. Elders are seated with care. It's the beginning of a chant circular retelling of histories, myths, and moments encoded in verse. You sit cross-legged near the back as the first voice begins. The chant is old, clearly so. It speaks of migrations across open ocean, of stars followed and storms survived. Names roll by like waves. Pa, Mo, Ika, Mo, Ika. Heroes, ancestors, navigators. You don't understand every word, but the rhythm enters your bones. It's like listening to someone read the minutes of eternity, and that's when you understand something deep and quiet. Chants were clocks. Not just stories, but structure. A chant could anchor a ritual, measure a paddle stroke, align a burial. 1,000 years of memory, kept not in writing, but in repetition. And within them, time flowed and grew, and held everything. You look around, the flames flicker across faces young and old, all equally transfixed. No one checks their phone, no one counts the minutes, because the chant itself is the measure. And when it ends after what feels like both an hour and a breath, no one claps. There's just silence, the good kind. the kind that respects what just happened. You walk back through the village in near darkness, only moonlight guiding you now. Someone's hung wind chimes, made of shells, near your sleeping hut. They tinkle softly in the breeze, like tiny questions drifting through time. Lie down. The mat is familiar now. The night air comforting. The quiet absolute. And as your eyes close, you realize this day, like every day here, was shaped not by the ticking of a clock, but by the texture of experience. You were hungry, then full. Tired, then awake. Quiet, then moved. And in between it all, time flowed, patient, circular, generous. You think back to the man who said, "We walked beside it." Yes, you did. And maybe, just maybe, you still are. By now, you're no longer surprised when the light wakes you rather than a sound. Morning slides in slowly, first through the thin thatch of the hut, then through the air itself, turning the edges of the world gold. You rise without hesitation. You don't need to know the hour. You just feel it. The moment to begin moving again. Outside, the village is quieter than usual. Not still exactly, but thoughtful. There's something about the way people speak in lower tones, the way the fires are lit a little slower, the way the scent of kukui nut oil lingers like a memory. You learn that today is a day of remembering. Not a holiday in the Western sense, no date printed on a calendar, no decorations. But something deeper, more fluid. A day chosen by the elders, based on the moon, the season, and a feeling in the bones. Today is a day for stories. You find yourself sitting in a circle of others, once again familiar faces. Some of them sun-lined and stoic, others young and wide-eyed. But today, the stories are not about heroic voyages or sacred rituals. They are about the people who remembered. The keepers, the auntie who knew when to plant based on the movement of snails, the grandfather who timed fishing seasons by the color of the water, the child who asked the same question every night until the chant was memorized, the hula teacher who refused to dance a minute too early, waiting for the exact feel of dusk. Timekeeping in these stories isn't about control. It's about tuning into seasons, 2 stars, 2 gut instincts passed down through generations. One woman tells of how her great-grandmother would rise before dawn not because of an alarm, but because her dreams told her it was time to pick Maile leaves. She always arrived just as the mist was lifting. If you wait too long, she says, the forest goes quiet. That's how you know you've missed the window. You try to imagine your own life being governed not by push notifications, but by mist. It's almost too gentle to believe. Later, you follow a small group to the edge of the village, where a simple wooden structure has been built around a cluster of smooth black stones. This is the memory shrine. It's not grand. No carvings, no paint. Just stones, each one representing someone who once kept time in their own way. Here, time isn't recorded, it's honored. Someone kneels and whispers a name you don't recognize, placing a single flower beside one of the stones. No ceremony, no spotlight, just that one whisper, like a ripple in still water. You feel yourself exhale in a way you didn't know you needed to. It dawns on you that these people haven't just survived without clocks, they've chosen to. Even after exposure to Western tools, they kept the old rhythms alive. Maybe not in every moment, maybe not in every family, but enough. Enough to hold the pulse of it. Historians still debate how much of that pulse remains today. Some argue it's been diluted, fractured by centuries of colonization and technological upheaval. Others believe the heartbeat never stopped, it just changed instruments. One anthropologist once said that Hawaiian timekeeping was a philosophy disguised as routine. You think they may have been onto something? A child walks past you, humming a lullaby. It's the same melody you heard on your first night, but sung in a different key. Softer, slower, like time itself has aged a little and gotten wiser. You follow that sound to a quiet spot beneath a breadfruit tree, where an old woman is teaching to younger girls how to feel time through song. She taps a rhythm gently on a gourd, her voice like sand and honey. One beat for the tide, she says. Tap. One beat for the moon, tap. One beat for when you feel it here. She points to her chest, not her watch. No watch in sight. The girls mimic her, shy at first, then with growing confidence. You sit nearby, barely breathing, not wanting to break the moment, and you realize this is education. This is heritage. This is how you keep time without losing it. It's not in textbooks. It's in muscle memory, in lullabies, in sitting still long enough to let your heartbeat sync with the trees. Later that day, someone invites you to a different kind of gathering, this one with laughter and light food, meant to balance the morning's solemnity. It's not just a feast, it's a time sharing. People stand one by one to share their favorite hour from the past season. Not a time on a clock, but a moment. One man recalls the hour when rain fell without wind and the breadfruit trees glittered like silver. A woman speaks of the hour her child first copied her fishing knot. Exactly right. Another shares a memory of an hour walking alone on lava rock, feeling like the only person alive. And each time, the listeners nod. Because they felt that hour too, even if it was years ago, or on a different island, or under a different name. It hits you. These people don't measure time in length. They measure it in weight. A heavy hour, a light one. A bitter one, a sacred one. You begin to catalog your own. The hour you arrived here. The hour you watched torches light the hills. The hour you didn't know what time it was and didn't care. As the sun dips lower again, you help someone gather sweet potatoes from the edge of a field. You ask how long the harvest will take. They grin until it's done. There's no rush. There's only enough. And that is, perhaps, the most radical idea of all. Enoughness as a form of timekeeping. You carry that thought with you as you watch the horizon turn gold and then dusky purple. The stars begin to emerge, and for the first time, you recognize a few. The Southern Cross, Orion's Belt, the Pleiades. You point them out to a boy sitting nearby. He nods, unimpressed. I know, he says. Hey, they tell me when I'm sleepy. And just like that, time tucks you in again. You wake to the smell of smoke, not alarming, not sharp. Just the lazy scent of early cooking fires and leaves gently burning in a pit. The air is cooler this morning, touched by the mountain's breath. A light fog curls along the edge of the tree line like it's not quite ready to rise. You sit up slowly, brushing sleep from your eyes, and stretch into the morning like a cat in the sun. This is your final day in the village. No one tells you this directly, but somehow you feel it. It's in the way people move less with urgency, more with awareness. The kind of subtle shift that means something is ending or beginning, or maybe just shifting form. You're offered food-warm fish wrapped in tea leaf, steamed breadfruit, and something sweet made from coconut milk. You eat slowly, silently, sitting among others who are doing the same. Time has loosened even further here, become liquid. There are no schedules today, no rhythms beyond the heartbeat. And still, you are exactly where you need to be. A child walks by and hands you a stone, not polished, not carved, just smooth and warm from being held. For remembering, she says, and trots off again before you can ask what it means. So you hold it. And you remember. The salt on your skin from that first night, the thud of pahu drums beneath your ribs, the whisper of chants rolling over firelight, the taste of poi, the hush before a hula begins, the impossibly precise way stars once ruled entire migrations. And you remember something else, the feeling of time losing its grip, or maybe, you losing your grip on time. Because time here has always been generous. It stretches when it's needed. It holds still when it matters. It pulses softly beneath everything, not as a ruler, but as a companion. One of the elders motions you over for a final walk. He leads you toward a cliff edge overlooking the sea, where tall grass whispers in the wind and seabirds wheel in slow arcs. He doesn't say much, but when he does speak, it's to ask a question. You came looking for how we told time. Yeah, you nod. And now, you pause. You want to say so much. That time here doesn't tick. It breathes. That it hides in songs and roots and the pause before laughter. That you haven't known the hour in days and have never felt more grounded. But all you manage is, it's single quotes, as ... different. He smiles. Good, he says. You sit together for a while. He pulls something from his bag, a small rounded shell, and hands it to you. Some people use these as timers, he says. You fill it with water, let it drip. When it's empty, it's time. You examine it. It's beautiful in its simplicity and silent. But only if you're watching it, he adds. Otherwise, it's just a shell. And that's the heart of it, isn't it? Time is only what you give your attention to. Only what you choose to notice. Historians still argue whether traditional Hawaiian timekeeping systems were ever truly replaced, or just adapted. Some say the arrival of mechanical clocks was a breaking point. Others argue it was merely a layer added to an already rich system. They debate how much was lost, how much remains, how much was never written down and now only lives in memory, in rhythm, in stories told during sweet potato harvests. But what you feel is this. Time here is not a line. It's a circle, a tide. A song you can hum even if you don't know the words. Before you leave, you are invited to the final ritual. It's small, personal, a way of letting go. They bring out the Ipu Hekatha double-gourd drum and place it at the center of a circle. One by one, people tap it once. Not to mark an hour, but to acknowledge one. You wait your turn, then step forward. You tap it gently. You're not sure what you're marking: your arrival, your learning, your departure, all of it at once. But the sound it makes is real, deep, final. The others nod. You step back. There's no grand farewell, just quiet smiles. A shared meal. A glance toward the sky where the clouds are already changing shape. And so you walk. Down the path, past the breadfruit trees, past the taro pond, past the slow-turning stars in your memory. Time does not follow you like a shadow, it travels beside you, a companion with soft feet. The hut is empty when you return, but not barren. There's a folded kapa cloth where your mat once lay. A goodbye, perhaps, or a hello. You take one last look before stepping into the trees, and then, time, as it always does, carries you forward. And now, you're lying still, back in your own bed, maybe, or on the couch, or under a ceiling fan that hums like ocean wind. The sounds of the village have faded. The pahu drum, the rustling palms, the water dripping from the gourdal, quiet now. But in their place, something gentle remains. The sense that time doesn't have to chase you, doesn't have to weigh heavy on your shoulders. That maybe, just maybe, it's something you can walk beside. Think of the stars above the Pacific, spinning not hurriedly, but with purpose. Think of the torchlight glimmering on ridges, connecting one island to another like fireflies blinking in rhythm. Think of songs that marked not the minutes, but the moments. You're safe now. There's nothing left to count, nothing pressing. No alarms waiting to scream into your dreams. Just the slow, generous rhythm of your own breath. In, out. Maybe you feel a little heavier now, like you've been resting for hours. Or maybe you feel light like driftwood, ready to float wherever sleep takes you next. Let that feeling deepen. Let it settle. Because in this moment, there is no wrong time to fall asleep. Only now, and now is soft and wide and full of stars.